Mordecai, a man of wisdom, courage, and divine purpose. Among the many remarkable figures in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, few demonstrated as much wisdom, courage, and faithfulness to God as Mordecai, a central figure in the Book of Esther. His role goes far beyond that of a concerned uncle or attentive royal servant. Mordecai was a divine instrument for the preservation of the Jewish people during a time of extreme crisis. Mordecai's story unfolds within the context of the Jewish exile under the Persian Empire. His actions, firmly guided by his faith and sense of justice, reveal God's hand working through ordinary people to fulfill extraordinary purposes. In this text, we will explore in detail the life of Mordecai, his historical context, his relationship with Esther, and the spiritual lessons we can learn from him. Historical context. Mordecai first appears in the Book of Esther, set during the reign of Xerxes I, also known as Ahasuerus, who ruled the Persian Empire from India to Ethiopia. Esther 1-1. This covers the post-exilic period, when many Jews had been deported to various parts of the empire and lived as foreigners, though with relative freedom. Mordecai was a Jew from the tribe of Benjamin and a descendant of Kish. Esther 2-5. Which means he had roots in the lineage of Saul, the first king of Israel. He lived in Susa, the capital of the Persian Empire, wealthy and powerful city. Even though he lived far from Jerusalem, Mordecai held firmly to his faith and identity as a Jew, even amidst a pagan and oppressive culture. The guardian of Esther. Mordecai is first introduced as the man who adopted the young Hadassah, better known as Esther, the daughter of his uncle Esther 2-7. She was orphaned, and Mordecai raised her as his own daughter. This adoptive father role reveals from the beginning his responsible, caring, and loving nature. Mordecai instructed her not to reveal her Jewish origin. When she was taken to the palace to participate in the selection of the new queen, after Queen Vashti was removed, this guidance was strategic and prudent, showing his wisdom and spiritual discernment in a politically unstable environment. Mordecai in the palace. Though not royalty, Mordecai was always attentive to what was happening in the royal palace. Every day he went to the palace courtyard to learn how Esther was doing. Esther 2:11. During one of these visits, he overheard two of the king's officers plotting to assassinate him. Mordecai immediately informed Esther, who relayed the information to the king. In Mordecai's name, Esther 2:21-23, the plot was uncovered, and the conspirators were executed. Although his good deed was recorded in the royal annals, Mordecai received no reward at that moment. However, this would be essential for a future moment of great reversal. The conflict with Haman, one of the most significant events in Mordecai's life, was his resistance to Haman, the Amalekite, who had been promoted by the king to a position of great honor. The royal decree required everyone to bow before Haman, but Mordecai refused to do so. Esther 3:2. This refusal was not simple rebellion, but an act of spiritual conviction. As a Jew, Mordecai could not bow in worship or exaggerated reverence before a man. Haman, enraged by Mordecai's stance, decided not only to punish him, but to exterminate all Jews. He convinced the king to sign a decree allowing the massacre of the Jews in all provinces of the empire. Esther 3:8-11. The outcry and strategy. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and walked through the city wailing loudly. Esther 4:1. His grief was public, sincere, and deeply spiritual. He fasted, prayed, and mobilized other Jews to do the same. At this moment, he reached out to Esther, now queen, and asked her to intercede with the king. Esther hesitated, noting that going to the king uninvited could cost her life. But Mordecai responded with one of the most famous and powerful statements in Scripture. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. This line reveals Mordecai's conviction that God had placed Esther in that position for a redemptive purpose. He saw God's sovereignty, even in seemingly disconnected events, and believed that obedience and faith must be placed above fear. The divine turnaround. After fasting and spiritual preparation, Esther went to the king and, with great wisdom, revealed Haman's plot. In a providential twist, the king had the royal records read, and discovered that Mordecai had once saved his life, but had never been honored. Esther 6:1-3. In the height of divine irony, Haman himself was ordered to publicly honor Mordecai, parading him through the city in royal garments, proclaiming his greatness. Esther 6:10-11. Soon after, Haman's plot was exposed, and he was executed on the gallows he had built for Mordecai. The rise of Mordecai. With Haman's fall, Mordecai was promoted to chief advisor to the king and received Haman's estate, Esther 8:21-22. He assumed a position of great influence and used his power for the good of the Jewish people. Together with Esther, he secured a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves on the appointed day of their destruction. As a result, the Jews prevailed over their enemies, and the threat was annulled. Esther 9:21-5. To celebrate this great deliverance, Mordecai established the Feast of Purim, which is still celebrated by the Jewish people as a memorial of God's intervention. Esther 9:22-28. Characteristics of Mordecai. Unshakable faith. Mordecai lived in a pagan culture, surrounded by risks and pressures. Yet he never compromised his identity as a servant of God. His faith was active, manifesting in bold actions and spiritually grounded decisions. Courage. By refusing to bow to Haman, Mordecai risked his own life. His courage stemmed not from pride, but from the conviction that only God deserves worship. Discernment. He knew when to act, when to guide, when to wait, and when to confront. He showed wisdom in advising Esther, and in dealing with threats against the Jewish people. Humility and constancy. Even after saving the king's life, Mordecai did not seek recognition. His reward came in God's timing. Even with high office, he remained a servant of the people and a man of prayer. Mordecai's legacy. Mordecai is remembered as one of the great deliverers of the Jewish people. Though not a prophet or priest, his spiritual influence was profound. He teaches us that God uses ordinary men and women in ordinary situations to accomplish extraordinary things. He also shows that integrity comes with a cost, but it is worth it. His example inspires us to live with courage, faithfulness, and purpose, even in hostile environments. Applications for today. Mordecai's life offers several practical lessons. Do not compromise your principles. Mordecai did not bow, even knowing the risk. In modern times, where the pressure to conform is intense, his firm stance is a valuable example. God has perfect timing. Mordecai's reward did not come immediately, but at the right time, in an unexpected and glorious way. Influence can be used for good. When Mordecai gained power, he used it to protect and promote the welfare of his people, not for self-interest. God's purpose is above positions or titles. Just as he told Esther, we are all placed in our positions for such a time as this. Conclusion. Mordecai is a character who shines brightly in biblical history, not through miracles or supernatural feats, but through consistent faithfulness, courage in the face of injustice, and dedication to God's purpose. His relationship with Esther, his stand against the evil represented by Haman, and his leadership as a wise counselor showed that God honors those who honor him. As we study Mordecai's life, we are challenged to live with the same spiritual boldness, strategic discernment, and love for others. He is living proof that a single life, committed to God's values, can transform the destiny of an entire nation. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to know about Mordecai. Activate the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and leave your like. See you in the next video with more inspiring stories like this one.